Bring her over, my brother Mason said, smirking. I want my boss to meet the family disappointment. He hooked 2 fingers into my sleeve and dragged me across the ballroom of the Summit Ridge Lodge in Big Sky, Montana. Right as Paige's engagement toast ended, and the whole room turned toward applause, my parents followed, smiling like they were proud of the moment. My mom leaned close and muttered, "Try not to embarrass us for once." My dad let out a small chuckle, the kind he used when he wanted to seem harmless. I stood under a chandelier made of antlers, heat crawling up my neck, while snow fell outside the picture windows all night. Before I go on, thank you for being here with me. If you've ever been treated like the black sheep, I'd be grateful for a like, a comment, a share, or a subscribe. I read what you write, and it truly helps. Mason's boss was a tall man with silver hair and calm eyes, dressed in a navy suit that looked out of place among flannel and cocktail dresses. Mason flashed his best sales smile. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Brooke Dawson. She's the one who never really figured life out." Laughter didn't come. Not from Mr. Whitaker. Not from Paige's parents. Not from the bartender who paused mid-pour. The silence landed heavy, and I felt it burn through me like I'd stepped onto a hot stove and had to pretend it didn't hurt. Mr. Whitaker stared at Mason for a long second, then shifted his gaze to me. His eyes narrowed just slightly, as if a memory had snapped into place. "Brooke," he repeated, quieter. "Interesting." Mason's grin wobbled. "Yeah. She's been doing some small-time bookkeeping stuff. Nothing serious." My mother nodded quickly. "She means well," she added. Like my existence was a charity project. I kept my face still. I'd learned that defending myself only gave them more material. When you grow up where praise is rationed, you learn to survive on silence. Mr. Whitaker's expression stayed smooth, but his voice turned firm. "Mason," he said, "I'll need you in my office first thing Monday." Mason blinked. "Monday, sir. It's a holiday weekend." "I know what day it is." Mr. Whitaker replied. He looked back at me, and for a moment I saw something that almost felt like respect. "Enjoy your evening, Ms. Dawson," he said. Then he walked away. The room exhaled. My mother's nails dug into my arm. "What did you do?" she hissed. "I didn't do anything," I said. Mason recovered fast, laughing too loud. He's always dramatic, he told the crowd, like the tension was my fault. Paige squeezed his hand, unsure whether to smile. I mumbled something about a headache and slipped out. The cold night air hit my lungs like clean water. I sat in my car with the heater blasting and my hands trembling on the steering wheel, replaying Mason's words, my parents' faces, and the way Mr. Whitaker had said my name, like it meant something they didn't understand. At home, my tiny rental house felt too quiet. I poured coffee I didn't drink and stared at my laptop, the one my family called my little hobby. They didn't know my clients were companies on the edge of collapse. They didn't know I'd spent the last month quietly fixing Mason's engagement party contracts so it wouldn't implode in front of his future in-laws. A notification popped up on my phone. Unknown number. One message. "This is Graham Whitaker. I owe you a conversation. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. At 8:55 the next morning, I sat in a coffee shop off Highway 191, watching the door. Tourists stomped in with snow on their boots, laughing like the world wasn't sharp. I kept my hands wrapped around a paper cup, trying to slow my heartbeat. Graham Whitaker walked in at exactly 9. He didn't order. He spotted me and came over like this wasn't our first meeting. "Brooke Dawson," he said, and my name sounded familiar in his mouth. I stood. "Mr. Whitaker, I'm sorry about last night." He shook his head. "You don't owe me an apology. Your brother does." We sat. My palms left damp prints on the cup. He slid a card across the table. Summit Ridge Capital, managing partner. My stomach tightened. "So you're not just Mason's boss. Mason is a junior analyst," he said evenly. "Loud, charming, and careless. Those traits can be useful until they aren't. Why did you text me?" "Because I recognized you," he said. I blinked. "From where, Denver?" "6 years ago. A company called Ardent Pulse," he replied. The name hit me like fluorescent light. Ardent Pulse had been my first serious consulting job after community college and night shifts. I'd found the fraud, built the turnaround plan, then signed an NDA so tight it felt like a gag. "You were there," I asked. "My firm evaluated an acquisition," he said. "I saw your work. I also saw what happened after you warned them. You were right." I stared at my cup. "Why bring that up now?" "Because last night your brother called you the family disappointment," Whitaker said. "And I watched you stand there without begging. Real failures beg." A bitter laugh slipped out of me. "My family trained me not to beg." Whitaker nodded once, then leaned in. "Mason submitted a restructuring memo to me last month. It was unusually good. Too good." My skin went cold. "You think he stole it?" "I know he did," Whitaker said. "The formatting matched a template from Ardent Pulse. A template you built." I swallowed hard. "How would he even have it?" Whitaker's voice stayed calm, but the words cut. "Your mother emailed me your resume last night after the party. She called you confused but said you were useful with numbers. She attached a portfolio." My stomach dropped. "That portfolio is private." "It should be." He agreed. But it wasn't treated that way. "Mason used your material to elevate himself, then introduced you as a failure because he needed you smaller than his lie." The room felt suddenly too bright. I pictured Mason's smirk. It wasn't confidence. It was defense. Whitaker slid a single page across the table. "I'm terminating Mason today," he said. "And I'm offering you a contract. Interim CFO for our operations. 6 months. You clean up our controls and compliance. You get paid well. And your name is on it." I didn't touch the paper yet. "Why would you trust me?" "Because I already have," he said. "I watched you do the work nobody wanted to admit they needed. I don't repeat the mistake of letting the wrong person take credit." My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Where are you? Come back. We're all talking." I stared at the message and felt the mountains outside the window look closer. I looked back at Whitaker. "If I accept, what happens when my family finds out?" Whitaker's eyes didn't soften. "They'll try to claim you," he said. "And when that fails, they'll try to destroy you. Decide now which version of yourself you're willing to protect." By the time I drove back to the lodge, my mother had turned last night's insult into a family meeting. Plates of untouched brunch sat on the counter like props. Mason paced by the fireplace. Tie loosened. Paige hovered close. Fingers locked on her engagement ring. "There she is," my dad said. "Where were you?" "Getting coffee," I replied. My mother's voice went sweet. With who I didn't answer. Silence was safer than giving her ammunition again. Mason scoffed. "You ran off to cry. I ran off to breathe," I said. He tossed his phone onto the couch. Congrats. Graham texted me at sunrise. He wants me Monday. He sounded pissed. My mother grabbed my wrist. Tonight is the Gallatin Valley Children's fundraiser. Graham is the keynote. Mason is being introduced. Do not make scenes. I stared at her hand. I didn't call me a failure. She released me. Sharp. Sometimes you accept your role. Paige's family is watching. Don't ruin this. That afternoon she pinned my hair back and loaned me earrings that pinched. Then smiled at her reflection like we were a team. The fundraiser ballroom glittered with silent auction baskets and local donors in winter boots and cocktail dresses. A banner read, "Building Brighter Futures for Montana Kids." I recognized the nonprofit director from volunteer shifts. She waved. Surprised to see me with my family, Mason worked the room like he owned it. Laughing too loud. Shaking hands. Collecting attention. When anyone asked what I did, my mother answered for me. She's between things. Mom chirped. You know how creative girls are. Creative. Like my work wasn't real until a man stamped it. When the program began, Mason's name flashed on the screen under Emerging Leader Award. My father clapped hard. My mother beamed. I sat at the edge of the table, hands folded so no one could see them tremble. Then Graham Whitaker stepped to the microphone. He didn't joke. He didn't charm. He looked at the crowd like a surgeon reading a chart. Thank you for supporting children, he said. Tonight, you're also supporting honest leadership. My pulse jumped. His eyes landed on Mason. Mr. Dawson. Would you stand? Mason popped up. Grin ready. Absolutely. Sir. Whitaker lifted a folder. Last month I received a restructuring memo credited to Mr. Dawson. It impressed my board. It also raised concerns. Because it used proprietary frameworks from a prior case. A hush fell over the room. Mason's smile froze. I can explain. You will. Whitaker said. In my office. With counsel. Mason's face drained. Whitaker turned slightly and spoke as if he was correcting a record. Not starting a war. The work belongs to Brooke Dawson. She built it. She's done this quietly for years. And she deserved credit long before tonight. My mother made a small sound. Like air leaving her body. My dad stared at the table. Paige's mouth opened. Then shut. Heat rose behind my eyes. But I didn't cry. I sat still while strangers looked at me as if I'd been mislabeled and finally fixed. Whitaker continued. Brooke will be joining Summit Ridge Capital as interim CFO. Effective immediately. Applause started uncertain. Then grew. It washed over me like something I hadn't been allowed to receive. Mason leaned close. Voice thick with panic. Brooke. Fix this. I stood. Smoothed my dress. And looked at him once. I didn't speak. I didn't argue. I didn't give him a scene to twist. I turned and walked out past the auction tables. Past the banner. Into the cold Montana night. Letting the door close softly behind me. Monday morning, I walked into Summit Ridge Capital's Bozeman office with a badge that still smelled like fresh plastic and a contract in my bag. The lobby was all glass and quiet confidence. The kind of place my mother would call intimidating and my father would call a waste of money. To me, it felt like oxygen. Graham Whitaker met me at the elevator. You ready? He asked. No. I said, but I'm qualified. He nodded like that was the right answer. Good. First thing, we change access. Within an hour, the IT director had rotated passwords, disabled Mason's credentials, and pulled audit logs. My work didn't start with spreadsheets. It started with the locks that keep people from taking what isn't theirs. In the CFO suite, a wall-sized screen showed portfolio companies in different states of health. Some were stable, some were bleeding, and one, highlighted in red, had Mason's initials beside its file. Whitaker pointed. This one is why I called you. Their burn rate is out of control. Someone's been signing vendor approvals without matching receipts. I sat down, opened the file, and felt my brain settle into its natural shape. Patterns, trail, motive. By lunch, I'd found 3 repeat vendors with different names but the same bank routing number. By 3, I had a timeline showing approvals happened late at night from Mason's login. Not just stolen credit. Active extraction. At 4:11 p.m., my phone lit up. Mom! I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Then Paige. Then Mason. A text came through from Mason. We can fix this. Tell Graham you were confused. You owe me. I forwarded it to Whitaker and to HR without replying. At 5:02, my mother's voicemail arrived. Sobby and urgent. Brooke. You're destroying your brother. He's having a panic attack. Call me back. We need to talk about what's fair. Fair. The word they used when they wanted to rearrange reality. At 7:30 p.m., while I was eating takeout at my rental kitchen table, a delivery driver dropped off a manila envelope. No return address. Inside was a printed cease and desist letter from a small law firm in Billings. It claimed I had defamed Mason publicly and demanded I retract statements or face civil action. I stared at the letter and laughed once. Dry. I hadn't said a word. Mason had been exposed by his own theft. Whitaker called. Is calm. They're trying to scare you, he said. Do you have representation? I know a lawyer in Denver. I said, use mine, he replied, and keep every message. The next day, I met Summit Ridge's counsel. A woman named Taryn Holt who spoke like she'd been waiting for my family for years. She read the cease and desist and shook her head. Empty threat, she said, but useful. It proves they're coordinating what I asked. Control, she replied. They want you to hand back the narrative. That afternoon, my mother appeared in the office lobby, dressed like she was attending church. Eyes wide with practiced humility. Security called me. I went down but stayed behind the glass doors. Same boundary. Different building. My mother pressed her palms together. Brooke. Honey. You're overwhelmed. Let us help you manage this. You mean manage me? I said. She flinched. Mason made a mistake. Families forgive. Families don't profit from mistakes. I replied. Her voice turned sharp. You think you're better than us now? I stayed calm. No. I think I'm done being smaller. She leaned closer, whispering, if you don't fix this, Paige's wedding is ruined. Your father will have a heart attack from stress. I almost smiled at the familiar script. Blame. Fear. Guilt. I said, email my attorney. Leave. When she refused, security escorted her out. She cried loud enough for the receptionist to hear. It used to make me fold. Today it just sounded like tactics. That night I opened a new folder on my laptop and labeled it Dawson Evidence. I saved everything. Messages, voicemails, the cease and desist, the access logs, vendor routing numbers. Because if my family wanted war, they were going to get the version fought with facts, not the version fought with my tears. The day Mason was officially terminated, my father showed up at Summit Ridge with a box of donuts like sugar could soften fraud. Security called me. I didn't go down alone. Taryn Holt came with me, calm and unreadable. My dad stood in the lobby, shoulders squared, eyes pleading. "Brooke," he said, "this has gone too far." I stayed behind the glass doors. "He stole," I replied. My father's mouth tightened. He made a mistake. Taryn spoke for the first time. "Mr. Dawson, Summit Ridge has documented evidence of unauthorized vendor approvals and misrepresentation. This is not a family misunderstanding." My dad ignored her. He looked at me like he could still pull the old lever. "Your mother hasn't slept. Paige's in-laws are furious. We need you to tell Graham you exaggerated." I felt something in my chest unclench. Not anger. Freedom. I didn't say anything. I said, "Graham said it." Because he verified it. My father's eyes flashed. "So you're going to let your brother get ruined?" I nodded once. "He ruined himself." He slammed the donut box onto the counter. "You think you can just replace your family with rich strangers?" Taryn's voice stayed measured. "Sir, you are trespassing. If you don't leave, we will call law enforcement." My dad's face went pale. He grabbed the box and backed away like consequences were contagious. 2 hours later, Graham called me into his office. "The vendor trail connects to Mason's personal accounts," he said. "We're pursuing restitution. And I want you to hear this from me. You did the right thing." I swallowed hard. Praise still felt foreign. "I just did the math," I said. "Exactly," he replied. "That's why you belong here." On Friday, the nonprofit director from the fundraiser emailed me. She attached a photo from the auction night. My face half turned as I walked out. Under it, she wrote, "The kids saw a woman stand up for herself. Thank you." I stared at the message until my eyes burned. Because for years, I thought my silence was weakness. Now I saw it was endurance. That weekend, I drove to a small cemetery outside Bozeman where my aunt who raised me, Janine, was buried. She was the one who taught me how to balance checkbooks and hold my chin up when people tried to name me wrong. I placed a coffee on her headstone and whispered, "They can't erase me anymore." When I got back, a final email waited from my mother. Subject line: family meeting. She wrote 3 paragraphs about forgiveness, then ended with one line: "If you don't make this right, don't bother coming to the wedding." I read it twice and felt almost nothing. Then I forwarded it to my attorney and blocked her number. Because the truth was, I'd already missed years of their love. I wasn't going to miss my life chasing it. My contract with Summit Ridge became permanent. The board voted me into the CFO role. The red company on the wall screen turned yellow, then green. Payroll stabilized. Vendors were verified. Fraud controls were rebuilt with my fingerprints on every safeguard. The first time my name appeared in an internal press release, it wasn't as someone's sister. It was as the leader who fixed what others broke. Thank you for staying with Brooke through this. If you'd like to support stories like this, a like, a comment, a share, or a subscribe truly means a lot. And I'm grateful for every message you leave.